time right now is 8:30. Good Wednesday morning. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3, streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. This morning we're on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. You can see my handsome young guest, and I'll introduce you to him here in just a second. And I was telling him before the show, and he told me probably should wait till after before I mention this, but I think these are the kind of shows that we would like to do ideally on the Community Voice program. Talk about the movers and the shakers, people who had a hand in assisting Carroll County to where it is today, for better or for worse. But my guest this morning is Dan McBrayer. He started business in the late 70s in Carrollton. He also served 8 years on the Carroll County Commission, and that's one of the focal points of our conversation this morning. I believe it was District 4. We'll find out if the maps were the same at that point. But one-time president of the Dawnbreakers Rotary Club, and he's married to a saint. Her name is Sue. Yeah, and she's been on the program several times. So, Dan McBrayer, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And I appreciate you coming out just to talk. I mean, just a laid-back conversation, kind of reflecting on, a time of Carroll County that I wasn't here. I wasn't here until late 2000s. So a lot of things that I'll miss out on, and some of the names you'll bring up today are names that I've heard from other people when they refer and tell me stories. So get a better idea of them. But good morning. Anything that I miss about who you are?
No, that's enough.
Is it? Did you? Well, tell me this. You were born in Carroll County, right? You're a lifelong resident.
Grew up in Temple, Georgia.
Yeah.
Graduate of Temple High School.
And what year was that, Dan?
1969.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not. It doesn't.
Back when you were a figment.
Yeah, right. I was a figment there, but and I'll tell you that was post segregation. I mean the schools, right? But they start in 68, 69?
In Temple, the black students had to get on a bus and go to Carver High School in Carrollton. Mm-hmm. There were about 40 of those children, and when I was in the 9th grade, they integrated the school.
That's okay.
And we had a total attendance at Temple High School of about 200. So we never had any problems. Everybody got along, mm-hmm. and that was that.
Well, that was 68 or 69 when that happened?
It happened probably 66, 67, somewhere in there.
I have Carolyn Gray on the show a lot. We talk about the
Carolyn.
Carver High School a lot. And I should know better, Carolyn, so I apologize for not having that specific date. Well, go ahead. Yeah, give us a little bit more about Dan McBrayer, how you got into, started your business, insurance business here in Carrollton, and we'll at least creep up into the 1990s where we talk about your service on your work on the Carroll County Board of Commissioners.
I worked at Senator Wire and Cable for about 3 years, and I decided to get in the life insurance business. I'd met a guy in Atlanta named Gene Asher who started an agency with New England Life, and he thought I could sell insurance. So Sue and I had just gotten married in 76. I met Sue in August of 75. One morning, Monday morning, my boss came in and handed me a phone number and said, "This is my wife's first cousin."
I'm glad you continued there. You said, "This is my wife." I was like, wait a minute. Yeah.
No, first cut. You're to call her up and ask her out this weekend. So in order to keep my job, I called her up, and we went out on a date, and we hit it off real well. That was the end of August, and we got married May 14th.
And you lucked out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she thought my family was loaded.
And she a longtime educator, right? Carrollton City Schools?
Yes, Sue was a teacher at Carrollton for 32 years. She's been retired for a while. She started teaching at the high school when she was in the 7th grade, mm-hmm. and she's taught typing, keyboarding, and business law, business English.
So give me an idea of what the Carrollton was. So the mid-70s, was that 50 years ago? Close to 50 years ago?
Correct.
Give me an idea what Carrollton was like at that point.
Well, it was a lot smaller.
Uh-huh.
At one time in the early 80s, I had an office in the People's Bank building, and there wasn't that much traffic on the square then, and you parked on the square somewhere, and it's not like it is today.
Uh-huh. And I've seen older pictures, with the initial, I believe, the roundabout, and wasn't there a statue in the middle as well? But I don't know when that was taken
That was moved down to the county where it still is.
Mm-hmm. The People's Bank building, that was WGTC now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My office was on the 2nd floor, and then I moved up to the 3rd floor. And one day Mr. Hutchins called me down to his office and said, "Dan, I've got bad news. They've condemned the 3rd and 4th floor, you're going to have to move.
Yeah.
So they took off the third and fourth floor.
WLBB was on the square at one point.
Upstairs.
Right? It was the same, same building?
Upstairs.
But they got out before it was condemned. Or actually,
they were gone.
That might have been the result of it. WLBB may have been the reason it ended up being condemned.
No, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
I doubt it did.
Well, Dan, what were the issues in the, let's get into the 80s. What were some of the big issues, the big problems, or the things that we had to deal with?
Well, and by the way, before I forget it, I want to wish everybody it's National Bootlegger Day. Happy National Bootlegger Day.
I heard it was National Charlotte Day, too, whatever that means.
It could be. Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah.
In the 80s, things were a lot different politically. Whereas most all your candidates now are Republicans, in the 80s and before, everybody was a Democrat. So if you ran for office in the primary and won the primary, it was token opposition after that. Now, our story with this county commission business starts probably in the 80s. In 88, I was one of the business people that talked David Perry in running for sole commissioner. David's a very good friend of mine, and he gave me some help with this. And there was a lawsuit that was filed from the NAACP wanting to make Carroll County have minority representation, and they couldn't do that with a sole commissioner. Long story short, David got elected, and I guess it was around 1990 that case was settled, and the county had to set up a board. David reminded me that he went to see Manuel Maluth in DeKalb County. They had a charter that gave the chairman vast powers. And so David Mecklin drew up that charter. It's fashioned after DeKalb County. So we wound up with a board. And the first members of the board, I was not on the board, was Ken Childs, who you're familiar with Ken, Monroe Spake from Villarica, Jerry Levins from Center Point, Doug Bassey from Carrollton, Marion Jordan from south of town, and Colonel L.E. Whitt. So that was set up to where there would be an election in 1992. Now, I came into the picture. Y'all may remember the Gulf War. Doug Bassey decided to resign from the County Commission, District 4, and go off to the war. So David Perry called me up and said, you've got to run for that seat, since I'd helped him get in it. So I did, and we were elected, and that was 1991. Now, the budget in those days was about 12 or 13 million a year, because when David was running, we would tell people the next person that we elect will be responsible for $50 million in 4 years. Of course, times have changed. The county's bigger. There's a lot more things. The budget's over $70 million now. So, things that were happening then was the county was much smaller. David Abercrombie was the clerk. He also took care of zoning. Tracy Till had put zoning in. People didn't like it. But then a few years after that, they wouldn't want to get rid of it. So we didn't have as many issues. We used to meet in the old state courtroom. We were down, and people were looking down at us. There was a back door, and I knew if things got rough, I could beat Ken Childs out the back door. So that was things that were going on then. David did a real good job. He did things that still exist. He set up an internal auditor so the county would know what funds they had and how much money they were spending on what. And those accounting jobs and stuff with the county still exist. Alicia Searcy is the internal controller for Carroll County. And so David did a lot of good things, setting it up more as a business, and did a really good job.
And I imagine there are a lot more, even though we're a farming community now, but I imagine that there were a lot more farms even at that point, right?
Yes. And when David ran for office, there were 26,000 registered voters, and now we have over 80,000. Yeah. We're a lot bigger than we used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I bring up the farmers. Was there concern about? Did they ever see a time where the agricultural land would start to disappear? Were there concerns at that point that, like, let's keep this place rural?
Yes, just like there are now.
Right, yeah, I was trying to compare that. Yeah, absolutely. But let me ask a question before we go to the break. Were you part of the first SPLOST election, Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax? Were you part of that on the board?
Yes.
Do you remember how that was presented to you guys, and then how you guys tried to present it to the community?
Well, I went back and looked at some newspaper clippings, and we had fierce opposition. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Duncan was in favor of it, and we needed the money. And so we got that. I checked the percentages, 55% to 45%. And there were actually people opposed to it. Mm-hmm. And so we were very fortunate to get that done.
So I think it's like 75-25 now.
Right. People like sales tax now. And fortunately, we didn't have a lot of money then, and it helped us a lot with paving roads.
Yeah, and continues to do that. You did you expect that the tax would end ever? Did you guys see a time where it ended, or do you think it was something that was going to go on forever like it kind of is now?
Now, I'll be honest with you, since that's a long time ago, we expected it to go on forever.
Did you? Really?
Yes,
right.
Of course.
Dan McBrayer, my guest on this morning's Community Voice program. This morning we'll call him Carroll County historian, Dan McBrayer.
Not really.
Well, but you're doing good this morning, though. I mean, giving us a lot to think about. And he's also the husband to Sue McBrayer. We'll take our first break here and come back and continue our Community Voice program on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. If you have any questions or comments for Dan this morning, or you want to rekindle the memories here with us, feel free to post your comments and questions on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page, and we will come back with more in just 1 minute.
Oak Mountain Academy is an innovative school of academic excellence celebrating over 61 years. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to join us on the mountain to see our mission and vision in action. Academic excellence, a faith-based environment, and dynamic opportunities are just a few of the reasons our families choose Oak Mountain Academy. Academic scholarships and tuition assistance are available. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us. Discover your journey at OMA. Prepare, explore, and achieve.
Health is a journey. It's making better choices, even when it's not easy. It's taking care of yourself and the people you love. At Tanner Health System, we're there for you with every step, with primary care, heart care, cancer care, women's care, orthopedics, surgical services, and so much more. We're dedicated to helping you live and feel your best. So let's get on that journey to health. You've got places to be for many years to come. Find us at tanner.org.
All right, 8:43. Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. My name is Colin Worthington. My guest this morning, Dan McBrayer, lifelong resident of Carroll County, served on the Board of Commissioners for Carroll County District 4 for 8 years. I believe it was in the 90s, right?
Yes.
Well, how about we think about I hear a lot of people complain about the voter turnout now for elections, and it's pretty slim, unfortunately. But how about that 30 years ago when you first ran? Was there a good turnout? Were we happy with numbers then?
Well, I got elected in a special election, and there wasn't a big turnout for that. But I had to turn right around the next year and run for re-election. All of the district commissioners that first time in 92 ran for re-election. Some of the terms were 2 years, some of them were 4 years. And David Perry decided, like I said, not to run, and so we wound up with a brand new board in 92 except for me. What was going on then was reevaluation of property. There were probably over 20 or 30,000 appeals filed, and so a lot of people were mad about that, and so the county commission really doesn't have anything to do with that. The Board of Assessors does it. People get involved with government. They usually don't pay much attention to it, and until it affects them directly.
Yeah.
A zoning request, somebody wants to put a subdivision or a trailer park next door to your property, or you want to go up on taxes. So people pay attention to those things. In those days, there wasn't any internet. There wasn't any Facebook, no email. You got your news from the radio station and the local newspaper, and certainly by word of mouth. So now today, you have a whole lot more information out there. And of course, as you know, if people read it on the internet, it's the truth. So Mr. Duncan came in and worked with the board, and it was something he had not been used to, because when you're sole commissioner, you do what you kind of want to do. And we had some ups and downs, but we did get that sales tax passed, which was a big thing. And one thing we also did, one day, I don't remember when it was, Tom Upchurch called me up, and they had moved out of the College Street school building and wanted to sell that to the county. He said he would take $100,000 the first year, and I believe it was 2 or 3 more years at $100,000. Total was $300,000 or $400,000. I think it was $400,000, but that was 4 acres of land and 43,000 square feet. So I convinced David Peary that we ought to buy that. I think that was a stopgap place that I envisioned that only lasting about 20 years, but they're over there tearing it down right now, 30 years, and going to put another building there.
Yeah.
So that was one of the good things that we were able to do.
There were several departments in there as well, right?
Yes. And the commissioner's office moved over there.
Yeah.
And with Mr. Duncan's, I suggested to Mr. Duncan we start recycle centers. Wendy Krager was involved with that, and the first one it's still over there across sort of from the sheriff's office. And then later we added a lot more, and it's been a real benefit to the county.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have thought about that being a big deal in the 90s.
It was.
Yeah, recycling, so that's,
Yes, it started.
Very cool. Dan McBrayer is my guest on this morning's Community Voice program, and we're walking down memory lane for Carroll County, talking about some of the things Dan's been involved in as a Carroll County Board of Commissioner, served 8 years on there. Hey, going back to the sole commissioner, what were did people like that at that point? Did their minds change? I mean, did they prefer to feel like they had a representation for every district in the county once that changed? What was the overall feeling on sole commissioner versus having 5 or 6?
People in those days and wanted to go to whoever the man was they elected and look them right in the eyes and say, I need this done, I need my road paved, and here's why. And that way they could decide if they wanted to vote for that person for re-election. The district commissioners don't have any authority to say that. They can suggest that to the chairman, and they try to work together. The Board of Commissioners has the authority to set the budget. They get to approve contracts. I believe it's $12,500. They have to help approve that, and some other things. But the majority of control of the county is with the chairman as far as doing things. She is responsible. Now, of course, we have constitutional officers like our sheriff and the tax commissioner and all the judges. But the commission office is for roads and revenue, and they help set the budget for all those departments.
Dan McBrayer, our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. We're going to take our final break and come back and conclude our program, try and get some more tidbits from the 90s and I guess the early 2000s as well. Dan being on the Carroll County Board of Commissioners, projects he's been involved in, things that he's seen develop over the last 50 years here in Carroll County. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy.
The AP Scholar Journey at Oak Mountain Academy is designed to provide students with a clearly defined advanced placement curriculum track to earn a series of distinctions upon graduation. This journey enables academically prepared students to pursue college-level studies throughout 17 AP courses in 5 subject categories while enrolled at OMA. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to journey with us on the mountain. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us. Discover your journey at OMA. Prepare, explore, and achieve.
Health is a journey. It's making better choices, even when it's not easy. It's taking care of yourself and the people you love. At Tanner Health System, we're there for you with every step, with primary care, heart care, cancer care, women's care, orthopedics, surgical services, and so much more. We're dedicated to helping you live and feel your best. So let's get on that journey to health. You've got places to be for many years to come. Find us at tanner.org.
Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice here on News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, streaming live online at newstalk1330.com. And this morning we are on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. My guest this morning, Dan McBrayer, lifelong Carroll County resident, just taking a stroll down memory lane, talking primarily about his work close to a decade as a Carroll County commissioner, and he represented District 4. How much is that? Have you paid attention to how much that District 4 has changed over the years? Has it just as Carroll County grew?
Well, I would say when I was in there, most of the district was in the city, half of it was, and the rest in the county. Mm-hmm. I think it's all the districts have more population now than they did 30 years ago. One thing I did want to mention was the pay. Mm-hmm. And as I told you earlier, my son was about 7, and we were riding home one day during the election, and Joseph's about 7. He's in the back seat, and he said, "Dad, what does this commissioner job pay?" And I said, $500 a month. And he said, "Wow, we'll be rich." So, but now district commissioners make a lot more money. They've had some raises the governor's put in, and you can make $17,000 to $20,000 a year, plus insurance, plus retirement. So if you live in District 1, 3, and 5, those are up for re-election, and you're looking for a part-time job, you might want to look into it. You can certainly get a copy of the charter by calling the commissioner's office, 830-5800, and they'll be happy to give you a copy of the charter if you like.
And that qualifying for that starts in March, I think. It's
March 4th.
March 4th. Wow, you know that date. Are you thinking about running again?
No, sir. I'm in District 4.
You're in District 4, yeah.
We got somebody.
Yeah. You like Steve Fuller?
I've never met Steve Fuller,
he is,
but he seems like a nice guy.
He is. He's definitely likable. Definitely a good guy. Talked about the pay changes, the benefits. I mean, $17,000, I would say in the 90s. I mean, it probably wasn't. I mean, I think I made that. I worked at a TV station in the early 90s during college, so I think that's probably as much as I made at that point. But you're saying, $500, how that's grown over the last 25 years.
Yes.
How about the debates and things like that? Were there? I mean, did you have a challenger during that 8 years? Anybody? Did you have?
Yes.
Did you guys do debates? The League of Women Voters? Did they put on the forums and debates? Yeah.
Yes.
And what were the issues?
I think the issues were kind of the same. We want to keep taxes as low as possible, and we need to be careful of farmland. We don't need subdivisions on every corner. Another thing that came up was half-acre lots. A lot of people didn't like half-acre lots. Whether a half-acre lot would perk for sewage, septic tanks, was a concern. My subdivision, Oak Mountain Park, was in the county when I ran, and we needed sewer, so we eventually got annexed into the city, and the city put in sewer, and the subdivision doubled in just a few years because of the sewer.
There was, in the early 2000s, there was a potential for Carroll County to really explode. I mean, close to doubling the population. Was it Wolf Creek?
Wolf Creek.
Were you on the board then when that was being discussed and talked about?
Robert Barr could probably address all those. He was on the board, and that just never happened. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people of Carroll County are ready for some big influx of somebody. I don't think we want a second airport. I don't think we need a Wolf Creek, and I think people out there listening to this would probably agree. But Carrollton and Carroll County are growing, Villa Rica especially.
Yeah, and that's been the discussion, and it could have been the discussion the last 10 years I've been here. I just definitely noticed it the last 2 years. Everybody, just accepting that it's going to grow, and controlled growth is a catchphrase that the politicians use. But that Wolf Creek, I've gone back and read some things on it, some articles that were published at that time. But yeah, just talking about the subdivision, it was going to be easily accessible to Atlanta. It'll put you on South Fulton. Have access there. Yeah, you talked about potential for an airport, and I remember some things I read. The Chamber of Commerce was excited about it, Carroll County Chamber of Commerce at that time. So I wondered if how the commission thought about that as well. But that did peter out, and I think the land is still out there, and it was put back up on the market about 2-3 years ago. And I did a story on that.
I don't know,
and I don't remember if anybody bought it or not. But that could have been that could have really affected Carroll County.
Government needs to work as best it can with businesses. Somewhere in those years, the Freeport tax was a tax on inventory manufacturers had, and it was at 80%. And I was asked if we could raise that to 100%, an incentive for businesses. And when we did that, CBS Records at the time, they made a big expansion, which brought in a lot more jobs. So it cost a little bit of money, but not that much, offset by the expansion of that plant and the jobs that came in. So government should always look for ways to help businesses, not hurt them.
True story.
Especially radios.
Yes. The CBS plant and the Sony plant, when did that leave Carroll County? When did that go out of business?
Well, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was before I got here, like late. I was here in 2008, but I do remember stories about that as well. I think Thriller was Michael Jackson's album Thriller was put there. It was made here on vinyl. It was put on vinyl and sent out from here. But yeah, and I'd love to have some people who worked at that come on the program. That'd be a good community voice program too.
Yes.
So we'll get Mr. Barr on here one time. We'll try and get some CBS former employees, because I'm sure there are some cool stories. So that was still going on though while you were in office, right?
Yes.
Because there are stories about people losing their jobs. How significant that was on Carroll County. Well, we've got about 2 minutes, Dan.
If you want to get Robert Barr on there, I can talk him into waiving his speaking fee to be on the radio.
Thank you. Well, a mug, right? We'll give
the
him a
mug's
mug.
priceless.
Yes, that's right. We've got about a minute and a half left. Dan, anything you want to say? Anything we didn't touch on that you want to make sure?
No, I had a lot of notes. It's not easy to be on the Board of Commissioners or any elected position. In commissioner schools you went to, the one thing, there was one answer to every question is, it depends. Mm-hmm. So David Abercrombie gave me some very good advice when I got on the board. He said, don't ever tell anybody how you're going to vote on the zoning, because you want to wait and hear both sides of the zoning hearing. You may have your intentions, what you want to do, but that worked well for me. I think it was David Mecklin told me, or maybe David Abercrombie when I first got there, that something you say at night may sound cute, but the next day when it's newspaper, it might not.
That's legit, yeah. When you see the words out there, it may sound different.
Yes.
You think about some stuff, we were talking about Trump, you see some things he said, if they were just written out on paper, you kind of flip out and you don't see the way he presents it. Dan, thank you for coming out.
Glad to be here.
It was good talking to you.
I get my mug.
You get your mug, and I appreciate you calling, reaching out to me, giving me little tidbits, some things going on, although I do appreciate that as well. We appreciate you listening to this morning's Community Voice here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. I don't know who our guest is tomorrow, but Friday we have Carroll County Sheriff Terry Langley and Carroll County Commission Chairman Michelle Morgan. So hope you'll tune in for that program, and maybe we'll try and get for tomorrow. Maybe we'll try and get some of the people we talked about today on for that show. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. Stay warm.